For step 2, we're starting with our small head, our human small, because I changed the scale of the image. And our task is we need to remove that background. Notice in all of those double exposures, it was just the figure, and then the head, the background layer was cut out. So that's what we're going to do. The first step that we need to do is we need to make sure that our background is not locked, which it's not, and we don't want to work directly on this layer. What we want to do is we want to do that 2-finger, and we want to duplicate that layer. And we don't want that layer on top because it's kind of that background. We're going to go ahead, and I always put it on the bottom. Notice I can just move my layers around by just kind of shuffling them. With whatever layer you put on the background, what you're going to do is you want to make sure that that bottom layer gets locked so that nothing can happen to it accidentally. And then I also turn it off so that while I'm working, I can see if what I need to happen is actually happening. So I'm going to have you click on this layer, that top layer, that second layer, and you're going to notice that it is selected because it has been grayed out. What we need to do is we need to select our person so that we can get him out of the background. So we're going to do a quick review of these selection tools. In Photoshop, selection is or in Photopea, or in any photo editing, selection is so important. So you'll find that there will always be multiple selection tools. So that first selection tool is a rectangle and an ellipse. So you're going to see, that I'm just going to have that circle, nothing very fancy. It's not going to give me what I want, right? So I'm going to go Control D to turn that selection off. Anytime I make a mistake, I can always do Control Z. Notice I just shifted it back. So that's that first circle and rectangle. The second one is a lasso tool. And just like a rope, it has to have a beginning and an ending that are hooked in. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, make sure it's connected. I have that crosshairs, which tells me it is. I'm going to start drawing. The selection only works when it is connected back. And we would want to do something a little bit tighter. And this one's tough to do with your trackpad. So Control D. And then there's a different kind, which is polygonal. That's going to give you straight lines. It drops kind of a point. It can be precise, but it won't work in this situation either, right? So when I talked about problem solving, we're always trying to find the best tool for the job. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that magnetic, which is kind of nice. What it does, you don't see it right away, is it grabs onto high contrast edges. And I've already made those edges high contrast, but because I already boosted it up. Okay. What we're going to use is this new tool called the object selection. Photopea has it, Photoshop has it. It's a really handy way for the computer to start to read those pixels. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick object selection. I'm going to make sure that I'm on my background layer. And I'm going to just draw around my head because that's what I want. And then I'm going to notice that it says I want my crosshairs in the middle. So it kind of knows what pixels to look for. Okay, I got all of the head. The teeth I'm going to just leave for now. But it didn't take all of it. So now I need to build on that selection. I need to get that shirt selection. So step 1 is using that object selection. Step 2, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use that lasso. But step 3 is making sure that that merge tool is selected right up there. It's called Unite. And I'm going to take selection 1 and merge it with selection number 2. So I'm just going to carefully draw as best I can to match that selection. I'm going to go up and over, and then I'm going to go down. When I'm down here, it doesn't matter because you're not going to see it. I just need to connect it back. Notice automatically now I have one selection. But perfectly now what I have is I have my figure selected, and what I need to do is remove the background. So frequently I say select what you don't want to get what you do want. So we're going to go up to that selection menu, and I'm going to do what's called inverse. Now, if you notice, all of my background is what's selected. So I want to go back up to my move tool, that arrow tool. It's kind of where I land before I do anything else. And notice it also has a sub menu there as well. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit that delete key. And notice I don't have the background anymore and my background layer is turned off. So I have a pretty nice crisp edge. I still have those running ants because it's still selected. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit Control D. Now I'm ready for that next step. So before anything happens to that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say File, Save as a PSD, because what's going to happen is it's going to save my layers just in case anything happens. So it's good practice. So I'm going to call it Human Profile, No Background. So now when I see that, I'm going to say, hey, I know that doesn't have a background. I'll know that's kind of step 2. So that's that first kind of big thing that you're going to do before we start to bring in that next image.